They had fought in acid marshes, zero-atmosphere bunkers, and volcano moons where even standing was war. But when the galactic hegemony saw Earth's jungle scans, they laughed. Unshielded terrain, carbon-heavy air, dense moisture. Primitive. Uncivilized. Weak. A green smear on a blue rock, unworthy of caution. Commanders filed the planet under. Biome dense, threat low. The operation was handed to the Drelvax Legion, infamous for planetary sieges. To them, Earth's wilderness was little more than a nature walk with high humidity. Their drop zone, a thick rainforest belt spanning 500 square kilometers. Their goal, establish a base, launch a Terra stabilizer, secure planetary dominance. Their general, Varkoth, delivered pre-deployment orders with characteristic disdain. The jungle was dismissed as an organic thicket unsuitable for real warfare. Tactical AI ran simulations, all ending in clean, swift conquest. Scouting probes detected no energy grids, no planetary defense shields. Their biggest environmental concern? Mosquitoes. The fleet arrived in low orbit, shimmering against Earth's cloud cover. Drop pods descended in synchronized patterns, landing with seismic precision. Infantry units deployed in full armor, stepping into the underbrush with optical camouflage and atmospheric filters. Drones flanked them, mapping terrain in real time. The air buzzed with data streams. The jungle barely registered. Within hours, they built staging zones. Clearing trees was effortless. Plasma cutters sliced foliage like paper. Perimeter beacons blinked across the greenery. It was smooth. Too smooth. They underestimated silence. The jungle didn't react. It didn't resist. It simply observed. Beneath the roots, behind the leaves, something waited. Commanders reviewed preliminary reports. Zero resistance. No human military activity. A few outdated sat signals, analog in nature. Primitive beyond interest. Varkoth chuckled. "We take this world before the third cycle," he said. "Then we burn its lungs for fuel." On Earth's side, no formal retaliation came. No jets scrambled. No missiles launched. Only a few distorted transmissions pinged back to satellites. One of them carried coordinates. It was flagged and ignored. That night, the first anomaly occurred. Drone Unit 217 lost all telemetry 8 kilometers northeast of the main zone. Its last visual showed a vine-covered ruin. The final second before signal loss revealed thermal contrast, not animal, not machine. It vanished without trace. Internal logs were corrupted. Varkoth dismissed it. Equipment sometimes failed in moisture-heavy environments. A secondary drone dispatched to recover the unit also failed to report back. By morning, 6 were missing. Ground teams pushed deeper, chalking the disappearances up to terrain irregularities. What they didn't notice were the deliberate gaps. Trails leading nowhere. Paths that looped into ambush spots. Footprints arranged in impossible ways, doublebacks, lifted patterns, dead weight drags. Not natural. Not random. One squad returned early. Visibly shaken, their lead scout claimed he'd seen movement in the canopy, humanoid, silent, too fast for tracking. His report was redacted. Varkoth cited psychological strain and reassigned him to base duty. Still, unease spread. Communication lags grew longer. Environmental sensors reported false positives. Movement where none should be. Equipment needed recalibration, multiple times. Officers requested thermal drone backups. All refused. There were no enemies, just shadows and superstition. But at Earth's forward outpost, hidden deep underground, beneath layers of camouflage and topographic deception, humans listened. They read every intercepted message, monitored every drop report. They didn't react. Not yet. Jungle Division protocols had one rule: let them feel safe first. The elite operatives had already deployed. No parades, no banners. No exocets. Just face paint, mud, hand signals, and silence. They moved through roots and fog as ghosts, not to confront, but to prepare. By day 4, 23 units were off-grid. 3 failed to return from recon. Internal investigations suspected software breach. Engineers combed drone code for viruses. When they found none, the blame shifted to terrain hazards. The first full-body disappearance changed everything. Squad 9A, stationed near a waterfall basin, went dark mid-transmission. Not a trace remained, no heat signatures, no armor fragments, not even blood. Their beacon was recovered 20 feet up a tree. Still active. Still pulsing. No one could explain how it got there. Varkotha's command logs turned terse. Internal memos requested biopsych evaluations. Drones were ordered to operate in pairs. Soldiers were told to avoid lone patrols. Still, casualties mounted, always unseen, always quiet. Then came the intercepted audio. Unknown source, unauthorized signal, transmitting across secured channels. 4 words. Unencrypted. Slow. Human. You shouldn't have come. The jungle had gone quiet. Not the kind of quiet that brings calm, but the kind that crushes sound under pressure. The kind where even machines seemed hesitant to function. Signal feedback became erratic. Heat maps blurred. Movement patterns disintegrated. It was no longer a matter of if something was wrong, it was when it would strike next. Squad 7G's last known location was a high ridge overlooking the southern basin. Contact terminated mid-report. Not a scream, not an alarm. Just silence, as though someone had pressed mute on existence. The squad's biometric tags continued transmitting, for 7 minutes, before blinking out, one after the other, perfectly spaced. An aerial recon team was dispatched, equipped with enhanced thermal optics. From the sky, they saw nothing unusual. Tree canopies. River snaking through the valley. But when they landed to collect the tags, they found no bodies. No armor. Just thin red lines carved into bark. 4 vertical slashes, clean and deliberate, wrapping around a tree like a symbol. The pattern repeated elsewhere. Always 4 marks. Always in locations where units had vanished. Analysts couldn't trace its meaning. Command passed it off as local fauna behavior. But there was no local fauna left. Even the insects had gone silent. A squad medic from Delta 3 recorded what he believed were stress-induced hallucinations, distorted figures shifting between foliage, barely visible, never audible. One moved unnaturally, suspended midair without harness. He noted it at 3:46. By 3:52, he was missing. His recorder was found later. The last 3 seconds captured his breath quickening, and then static. The jungle's humidity thickened. Machines rusted faster. Visors fogged. Oxygen filters began to clog. Maintenance cycles tripled. One engineer noted that tools left unattended for more than 2 hours developed corrosion beyond expected decay rates. Something in the environment accelerated breakdowns. Or something was altering the environment. Reinforcement waves arrived with heavier gear and wider sweeps. They deployed acoustic scanners, electromagnetic sniffers, and pulse towers. Every device came back with irregularities. Audio maps were unreadable. Background noise patterns looped unnaturally. Some recordings included frequencies not logged in any cataloged ecosystem. One audio tech isolated a particular frequency, a low rhythmic pulse. When slowed, it resembled human breathing. Repeating. Cyclical. Intentional. Night patrols began reporting dreams. Same terrain, same faces, same disappearances. But the soldiers in their dreams didn't die. They watched themselves die, from outside their own bodies. Some refused sleep entirely. Fatigue set in. Performance degraded. Coordination collapsed. Command called for a psychological moratorium, standard protocol when troops experience group paranoia. It didn't help. The paranoia was justified. One recon operator initiated a thermal scan sweep across a ravine. The readout showed 38 heat signatures. His squad consisted of 12. He verified. Reset. Scanned again. Same result. The extra signatures were stationary, perfectly spaced in a crescent. By the time he turned to warn his team, 4 were already down. There were no gunshots. No energy weapons. Just sharp, precise eliminations. Internal organ failure. Arterial trauma. Delivered with surgical efficiency. None of it matched known combat behavior of any Earth-based force, because they weren't trained to be soldiers. They were trained to be predators. The pattern of disappearance spread. It wasn't random. It was systemic. Units closest to key uplinks were removed first. Communication hubs went next. Sensor networks died without impact damage. Only precision strikes. Not enough to destroy, just enough to blind. The jungle didn't want them gone. It wanted them lost. Drones began returning with corrupted memory cores. Some showed inverted footage, like they'd been flown upside down. Others recorded timestamps that hadn't occurred yet. One replayed a mission brief before it even happened. Timestamped proof. Logs aligned. Memory rewrites were suspected, but tech teams found no malware. One drone carried a message carved into its hull, letters burned in with heat, not laser. Leave now. General Varkoth issued a lockdown. No patrols without armored escort. Movement restricted to fortified zones. A perimeter grid was reinforced with motion detection mines and aerial deterrents. None of it mattered. By morning, 3 more units were missing. Their command posts were untouched. The food still warm. The weapons unused. Survivors became rare. Those who returned spoke slowly, eyes unfocused. One repeated the same phrase for hours. It was in the trees. Another was found wandering barefoot, armor discarded, hands trembling. When questioned, he said only, "We were never alone." The forest hadn't changed. The soldiers had. By the end of the second week, the losses weren't counted in numbers. They were measured in presence. The jungle didn't kill fast. It killed faith. Erased certainty. Replaced structure with chaos. It didn't fight. It hunted. Maintained this exact style, tone, and precision. Showcasing Earth's elite jungle forces, revealing their terrifying precision and mastery without breaking narrative pace. The humans didn't come in waves. They didn't march. They never broadcasted their arrival. They were already there, embedded, invisible, silent. No warning. No pattern. No survivors from the first engagement could recall seeing anything. Just the aftermath. Earth's response wasn't driven by retaliation. It was a measured strategy, rehearsed in silence and refined by blood. These weren't soldiers sent to defend a nation. They were operators trained to erase threats without being noticed. They didn't need numbers, air cover, or superior weapons. They had the jungle. Each operative in the jungle division was chosen from a lineage of fighters hardened by unforgiving environments. They learned to kill in terrain where satellites couldn't see, where signals died, where instincts replaced orders. Their doctrine wasn't about engaging the enemy. It was about dissolving into terrain so perfectly that the jungle itself became the weapon. Targets weren't shot from a distance. They were eliminated in whispers. Vitals severed with blades shaped for silent puncture. Enemy formations weren't bombed. They were disrupted from within, disoriented by false trails, rerouted by misleading signs, baited into natural traps that needed no mechanical assembly. Gravity, moisture, and missteps did the rest. Every inch of movement was calculated. Every pause aligned with wind patterns and ambient wildlife sounds. Insects were tools, used to trail movement or trigger reactions. Certain birdsong was used as signals. The terrain itself was manipulated. Rocks slightly tilted to signal direction. Leaves turned to reflect light and signal warnings. Nothing wasted. Nothing random. Enemy sensors failed because they were designed to detect machines. The humans were chemical ghosts, camouflaged in mud, foliage, and blood temperature matched to environment. Heat scanners picked up nothing. Motion detectors triggered on falling leaves. Armor was coated in microbial mixes that disrupted signal reflection. The jungle taught them that silence was louder than firepower. An alien support unit armed with thermal-linked exoframes vanished despite full overwatch. The recovery team found the suits crushed in vines reinforced with hardened bamboo, cut, shaped, and arranged without leaving tool marks. Biotech engineers reviewed the remains and concluded the trap required at least a week to prepare. It had been in place before the aliens landed. Fear grew among alien ranks not because they were being hunted, but because they were being studied. Every movement was predicted. Every strategy mirrored, then outmaneuvered. Enemy squads switched patrol routes. Within days, new traps appeared exactly along the adjusted paths. Camouflage changed patterns. Humans adapted within hours. Countermeasures were bypassed before being deployed. One elite alien unit attempted to lure the enemy into an ambush using a decoy transmitter. The signal was jammed mid-broadcast, and when the team returned to base, their command tent was already compromised. Gear gone. Communications wiped. A single knife embedded in the ground beside their rations. Their own insignia carved into its handle. No alarms triggered. No motion captured. The jungle let them know they had failed without ever striking a blow. Attempts to retaliate resulted in misdirection. Artillery strikes hit zones already cleared. Drone swarms locked onto false heat signatures, bonfires set hours before. Missiles redirected by mirror traps that bounced guidance systems into cliffs. No battlefield. No front line. The terrain shifted too quickly. The enemy didn't hold ground. They dissolved behind it. What broke morale wasn't death. It was absence. Full squads blinked out of existence without struggle. Veterans with 5 campaigns fell to gravity slips, vanishing under root beds pulled loose by water weight. Those trying to flee walked in loops, their navigation scrambled not by tech, but by altered markers made of local flora. General Varkoth authorized a full tactical inversion, turned from offense to containment. But every attempt to secure a perimeter was compromised before completion. The enemy wasn't breaching lines. The lines didn't exist. All technology designed for detection, suppression, or tracking became obsolete. Alien troops stripped down their gear, trying to move lighter. It didn't matter. The jungle consumed them all the same. Not by force, by inevitability. The message became clear. Earth didn't send an army. It didn't need one. It sent a handful of humans who had mastered nature's laws to such an extent that they became inseparable from it. The aliens weren't losing a war. They were being taught a lesson, that technology could be beaten by silence, arrogance by patience, and invincibility by humility. Pacing, an exact 780-word delivery. Command lost its grip. Authority fractured under pressure. What began as a planetary conquest shifted into a survival protocol no one had trained for. Orders contradicted each other. Field officers issued commands while ignoring transmissions. Chain of command unraveled. Discipline collapsed without open defiance. It simply faded, like the squads that never came back. Requests for reinforcements were met with silence. Higher command, orbiting far above insecure warships, delayed action. They saw numbers falling but couldn't justify another deployment without a clear enemy signature. No enemy had been seen. Only missing identifiers, scrambled logs, corrupted footage, and unconfirmed reports filtered through exhausted survivors. Extraction protocols were initiated. Forward teams were ordered to fall back towards centralized command zones. Evacuation corridors were mapped. Navigation software recalibrated. Retreat was declared strategic. The term held no meaning. Retreat required direction. Earth's wilderness offered none. Paths recorded hours earlier no longer existed. Landmarks changed without logic. Rivers bent at new angles. Routes looped back unnaturally. GPS synchronization failed entirely. Land-based beacons were hijacked or disabled. Some gave reverse coordinates. Others transmitted blank static on human emergency frequencies. Evacuees traveled in silence, conserving power and suppressing light signatures. Still, they were intercepted. Not by gunfire. Not by explosives. But by empty jungle clearing into which only half a squad emerged. Those who returned described long silences, feeling watched, hearing movements too synchronized to be animals. None of them could explain what happened between departure and return. Surviving alien officers began violating protocol. Some transmitted personal messages to families, others initiated self-termination after refusing redeployment. Fear was no longer tactical. It was cellular. Soldiers whispered of the air being wrong, that the green around them was listening. They began refusing orders to leave shelter, clinging to temporary safe zones that never stayed safe. Paranoia metastasized. One platoon executed its own commander after mistaking him for a disguised human. Another detonated its ammo cache without provocation. The heat signatures that had stalked their perimeters were no longer subtle. They moved in rhythm. They paced with the patrols. Close. Patient. Cold. Those assigned to communication duties intercepted strange loops. Whispered audio repeating in reverse. Phonemes not matching any galactic language. Yet some recognized Earth dialects buried in distortion. Phrases resembling known military cadence. Others mimicked alien command codes perfectly, rerouting requests into false locations, pulling squads apart like animal herds split before the kill. Orbital Command refused full-scale withdrawal. Admitting defeat was politically untenable. They instead offered aerial strike options. Surface commanders declined. No confirmed targets existed. Bombardments risked hitting their own units, assuming any were still alive. One final push was ordered, not to win, only to survive. The last remaining intact formation was directed to consolidate at Landing Zone 0. Perimeter defenses were reactivated. Anti-personnel drones configured to 360 degrees sweep mode. The sky was clear. Gear was recalibrated. Every scanner was online. That night, the jungle moved. Not as an army. Not as a wave. But as inevitability. Light sensors blinked red. Motion alarms triggered without source. Autonomous units fell out of sync. Systems glitched in sequence. 30 seconds later, internal comms failed. External comms followed. No one breached the perimeter. Yet soldiers vanished from sealed tents. Watch units reported seeing silhouettes that dissolved when approached. Camera feeds showed nothing. The defenses didn't fail. They never fired. The first confirmed casualty was the commander himself, found seated upright, untouched, eyes wide, no wounds. His data pad remained active, open to a system diagnostics report, all systems green, all channels clear, no threat detected. At dawn, only one remained. A junior technician, buried beneath the collapsed hull of a drone truck. His suit recorded 2 hours of whispering. Different voices. Some human, some mimicking alien commands. None ever repeated. He was recovered by a clean-up drone the next day. He didn't speak. He wouldn't move. When extracted, a note was found carved into the inner plating of his comms module. You didn't leave. So neither will we. Word reached orbit. There was no debate. All remaining ships were ordered to withdraw from low orbit. The official reason cited was environmental instability and hardware failure. No mention of resistance. No record of enemy contact. Silence archived. Below, the jungle restored itself. No smoke. No evidence. No trace. Just a clean canopy, teeming with humidity, untouched, undisturbed. Nothing to suggest thousands had landed. Nothing to explain why none returned. Those who watched from space knew the truth. The invasion hadn't failed because of poor strategy. It had failed because Earth had sent a response they couldn't predict, and wouldn't forget. In the aftermath, silence lingered heavier than destruction. No infrastructure was damaged, no cities attacked, no populations displaced. Yet Earth had delivered a message the galaxy could not ignore. A High Command review board convened aboard the orbital capital carrier. No visuals were shown. There were none. Reports were redacted beyond recognition. Sensor data was blank. No combat logs existed beyond incomplete telemetry and isolated death markers. The assessment remained inconclusive. The verdict was absolute. Earth was to be reclassified. Galactic protocol dictated threat levels based on weaponry, mobility, and population. Earth violated none. It lacked planetary defenses, possessed no interstellar fleet, and operated under fractured governance. Yet Earth now held a new designation, one feared more than enemy armadas: unengageable hostile zone. Files were sealed. Navigation systems rerouted trade lanes. Patrols adjusted without public notice. Maps labeled Earth as a biological anomaly unsuitable for military or economic interest. Internally, the truth was simpler. They didn't know how to fight what couldn't be seen. War councils debated possibilities. Some believed Earth had deployed unknown technology capable of environmental control. Others argued the force encountered wasn't sanctioned by governments at all, but something older, an evolutionary adaptation of warfare that merged instinct with terrain. A few speculated the jungle itself was intelligent, weaponized by its native inhabitants over millennia. That theory was never officially recorded. Only one document circulated among top brass. A single-page summary. No graphs. No images. Just 3 lines. 0 survivors. 0 engagements recorded. Extraction denied. The silence spread across military sectors. New recruits were shown simulations of Earth's wilderness not to train for battle, but to instill caution. Mention of its forests caused unease in species that once feared nothing. Veteran officers used it as warning, not of humanity's strength, but of its refusal to play by expected rules. Among mercenary circles, Earth became myth. Tales told of invisible units with no thermal trace, no footprints, no scent. That they wore the forest, spoke with animals, killed without sound. Some believed Earth trained its soldiers from birth inside jungles that never released them. Others claimed they had no need for training, that survival on Earth alone was preparation enough. Governments who once considered Earth irrelevant now monitored it silently. Probes launched without permission lost signal before orbit stabilization. Those that returned showed distorted topography and corrupted coordinates. Every attempt to verify results ended in failure. Earth didn't respond with threats. It simply withheld access. The event changed doctrine. Jungle warfare, once dismissed as obsolete, was now considered high risk. Worlds with similar biomes were assigned caution codes. New protocols avoided dense biological zones. Military academies added coursework not in combat, but in psychological resilience against unseen opponents. The enemy wasn't defined by strength. It was defined by patience, silence, and confidence unshaken by isolation. Back on Earth, no celebration followed. No announcement, no footage, no acknowledgement. Those who operated in the shadows returned to anonymity. The mission was never for glory. It was for continuity. To ensure Earth remained unbroken, not by war, but by deterrence so thorough no second attempt would be made. The operatives disappeared back into obscurity. Their tools buried, their uniforms scrubbed, their records erased. They didn't exist on paper, and that was the point. Their presence wasn't meant to be remembered. Their impact was. The jungle returned to its rhythm. Roots regrew. Trees covered the scars. What had occurred left no mark. Only the memory in those who tried to take what wasn't offered. Years passed. Then decades. The topic faded from public discourse. But the label endured. Earth unengageable. A quiet world on the edge of galactic charts. With no trade. No allies. No treaties. And no enemies willing to test it again. In time, other wars came and went. Front lines moved. Empires collapsed. But Earth remained untouched. The question remained unasked. No force dared verify whether the silence below was peace or warning. A single quote was later recovered from a personal journal of a high-ranking fleet strategist who studied the Earth incident extensively. It read, "They didn't fight us. They studied us. Then they ended us. Not to win, but to make sure we never came back." The strategist retired early. No replacement requested. Earth never retaliated. It never reached out. It didn't build weapons, launch ships, or send threats. It didn't need to. It had already answered the only question that mattered. If provoked, would it respond? Yes. Quietly. Completely. Without hesitation. And without leaving a trace.